You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, my name is Anthony Leveritz, host of the Next Pitch podcast, and I am joined by Hannah Huesman from Mental Sweat. And Hannah is a mental performance coach, high-level mental performance coach. And if you've listened to some of our previous content, you'll understand her background. And we are doing an 18-part series. This is number 2 on a whole bunch of topics around mental performance. Hannah, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Excited to do number 2.
All right. So today is focus and concentration. And I know it's a broad topic, but it's an important topic. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those conversations that I think isn't just related to sports, especially for kids, and where, if learned, can help in every aspect of people's lives, right? So as we start this conversation, let's just kind of define, for a parent out there, what is focus and what is concentration as we talk about that with young athletes, young students. What does that even mean?
Yeah, I think when you really break it down, it's like, focus is, are you able to focus on a specific task at hand, right? Like something's going on. Can you lock in your attention to whatever it is? Or are you easily distracted? And then concentration is like, can you hold that focus for X amount of time, right? Which research shows us that we can't, right? And that we're getting worse at that as we evolve. And I think as phones become bigger and faster immediate gratification, i.e. like TikTok, social medias, where you're just like 5 seconds swipe, 5 seconds swipe, right? Whatever it is, it's getting harder and harder. But it is, both of those things can be trained and they can get better if you really want to work on it and practice it. And so I think that's the cool part, right? You have these things where it's like, do I have good focus? Am I good at concentrating? Most of us really struggle with that, right? So if anyone's like, yeah, I'm a champ, then I want to see the legwork that they put behind that, because it really, really is hard to focus, right? That we've been doing presentations with Major League Baseball players for 8 years, and we make sure they're less than 15 minutes. Right? Because we know and have an understanding that focus will shift and go fast. And so it's cool. On one hand, it's like, can we be concise on our messages of what we're trying to get across? And on the other hand, can we stretch their focus a little bit and be almost entertaining enough to keep it and last for the 10 to 15 minutes we're trying to get across really, really good information. But it is getting harder and harder for kids to focus, but it can be trained and it can be gained. Like, it can get better, right? If you're already pretty good, it can get even better. If you're horrible, it can get better, right? So I think that's a myth, is people think you can't really do anything about it. It is what it is, especially quote unquote with little boys, like who are just born with ADD, right? It's like, hold on, right? We can help that in certain ways and entities. So I think that's the biggest thing for me on focus and concentration, is we can train it. We can do something about it.
That was going to be one of my next questions, is can it be trained, or is it a natural trait? But you brought something up that I'm going to go off script here. Okay. So for coaches, I hear this all the time, or parents too. My kid can't concentrate. They can't focus. And you go watch a practice and coach talks for 9 minutes and does 1 minute of drill work. Yeah. The opposite of that needs to be true for young people. Yeah. Talk less, do more. Yeah. If you have a 10-minute drill, 9.5 minutes of do, 30 minutes of talk, and that will naturally help your kids focus more. But asking them to listen for an extended period of time, and this was true 20 years ago. Yeah. It's more true now. Yeah. Less talk, more do.
Yeah, and it's twofold, right? It's on one hand, again, the coach, the instructor, the guardian, the mentor needs to be succinct, right? If you know your stuff, you can be short and sweet. It's not a cop out, right? If you don't know it, is when people tend to kind of ramble, and you're like, ooh. And also, if you think about that, even if you're a grown adult, like if somebody's sitting there rambling to you, you're like, what is happening, right? Like, let alone a 15, 12-year-old, whatever. Yeah. So like being succinct is so powerful, but at the same time, right? It's like, how are we helping our focus, right? How are we training that? If we are having a hard time staying focused in a game or during practice, chances are we're having a hard time focusing in other parts of our lives too, whether it's having a hard time going to sleep at night, whether it's focusing in school, whether it's putting our phone down, right? Whatever it is. And so I think it's a ripple effect of if you're having a hard time focusing in sports, then you should be practicing focusing not in sports. You know what I mean? Like the only time you don't need, or the only time you need focus isn't on the field, right? Or on the court. It's also in life too. And so I think you have to mesh those two worlds together, the sport world and just your life world, right? If you're going to like really focus on focus and concentration.
How? So give me kind of we only short period of time, so we're not going to give all the secrets out here. But for somebody who wants, I've got a talented kid, whether it's in sports or in academics and band, what it doesn't matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
They're talented. I know they're talented, but they're really struggling focusing on the task that they are really good at. And how do you begin that process? A simple step to my computer's just wanting me to update right now in the middle of this conversation. I apologize. So how do you go about beginning that process of improving that focus and concentration?
Yeah, I think the very first step is try to give yourself or your kid or whoever you are, try to give yourselves small opportunities throughout the day to be 100% locked in on a specific task. So, for example, if we're going to eat dinner as a family, no phones. No phones at the table.
I'm sending this to my kids as soon as we get done.
No phones at the table, right? If you, or even when you wake up in the morning, for the first 10 minutes, don't look at your phone. Or when you're on your way to the car or you're on your way to school in the car, don't look at your phone, right? It's like little things. And like, let's talk about X for 3 minutes, right? Or, hey, can you set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes and just be still? Like, can you just focus on what's going on in your brain, what's going on around you, noticing sounds, noticing smells, noticing how good the weather feels, right? Whatever it is, like, how can you find little tiny things throughout your day where you're not like dual focused, right? Where you don't have multiple things happening at one time, multiple inputs coming in at one time, and you have one singular focus. And that's really hard to do and seems like an easy task, which a lot of mental performance is really, really simple things, right? It's really simple. When you brush your teeth for 2 minutes, can you just stare at yourself in the mirror and brush your teeth for 2 minutes? Or are you putting on your clothes at the same time? Are you going to the bathroom at the same time? Are you talking on the phone? Are you scrolling TikTok while you're brushing your teeth? Can you literally just 2 minutes look at yourself in the mirror and brush your teeth, right? Like start with something like that. And watch the ripple effect occur, right? Because once you start noticing the small things and focusing on the small things, and all of a sudden you realize how quickly your focus changes and shifts. And then if you can't even focus on such a small mundane task like brushing your teeth, do you think you're going to be able to focus for a 2-hour game, a 3-hour game if you're playing baseball, whatever it is? It's really challenging. So start with small things, and it doesn't have to be like we have to go to focus training right now, right? It doesn't have to be this military intense thing. It's like, can I just be right here right now? Like, can I take away one distraction? Can I be focused on one thing for the next 5 minutes? Like those are the little things throughout your day that I would be challenging myself and kids with regularly.
So give me a real world example of somebody that you've worked with in athletics that struggled in this and how it impacted their performance. What because that's ultimately what athletes want, right? I want to be better on game day. I want to make more baskets. I want to throw the ball more accurately. I want to catch more balls. I want to hit it better. Whatever you want that. Give me a real world example of how that training has helped an athlete.
Well, if I've had this conversation once, I've had it probably 30 times, and it was about the distraction and the lack of focus or concentration that social media would have on their performance, right? So when you're working with elite level athletes, it's very easy to get in the doom scrolling of social media on how bad you are, how much you suck, right? And like the list goes on and on and on. And so I cannot tell you how many professional athletes have completely deleted social media. Maybe they still have it, right? And the world sees it, but on their phone, they don't have the Instagram app. They don't have, or somebody's running it for them. So like they're still getting interactions and all these things happening, but it's not even them doing it because they realize that them focusing on the wrong things is drastically hurting them in their performance, right? And it's a waste of their time and energy because you're focusing on the wrong things. And if you ask anybody, like there's very few things you can actually control, right? Especially when it comes to mental headspace, and focus is one of them. Focus is one of the things you can control. So if you realize your focus is really, really bad, or you're focusing on the wrong things, or you're focusing on things that are hurting your performance, you have the ability and the capability to change that and to shift that. So that was like a no-brainer. That was something they could do something about. And so they did. And that's the coolest part, I think, for me, from a focus and concentration standpoint, is that's the first thing. And the second thing is, a lot of times guys would almost like want to make sure their focus was a little heightened before the game. And so you can actually like kind of play around a little, like trial and error on like what games help you lock in and focus before a game. So like some guys played Sudoku. Some guys did a thing called a concentration grid, which is like a huge grid with 1 through 100 numbers on there, all out of order. And you just go like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And cross off the numbers as you see them. It's just kind of to get your brain going. But it's really just like, okay, I'm locking in. I'm telling my body it's time to focus. Here we go. And just like a mental cue. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be you're removing something. It can be just trying to lock in and do something. It's honestly just being able to like take all your thoughts. First of all, we have 60,000 thoughts a day minimum. Right. We have 60,000. So it's just like constant taking in data constantly. And so it's like, how can I tell myself what I want to be thinking about and when I want to be thinking about it, and then really become disciplined in that. Right. Because when you think about focus, to me, it's the greatest skill. And if you can, it's one of my sayings on mental performance is focusing on the right thing at the right time. Almost every single thing that we do in mental performance comes down to this. Think about that. If you're struggling, can you still focus on the right thing at the right time? If you're killing it and crushing it and dominating, can you still focus on the right thing at the right time? Regardless of the outcome, can you focus on the right thing at the right time, right? It all comes back to, are you able to focus on what you need to focus on when you need to focus on it? And so to me, it comes down to, have you practiced focusing on simple things throughout the day to where when you're in the batter's box, can you focus on the pitch you want to hit, or are you too easily distracted? And do you know when you need to focus on that, right? Because we can't have just locked in 24/7. It's impossible. So it's not only knowing what you need to focus on, but when you need to focus on it.
What I love about what your practice and how you talk about this is it's the simple things, right? It's not this big giant thing that I have to go attack. It's the day-to-day. So let's transition into corporate America. So day-to-day life, I hear this all the time. These young kids these days can't focus when they come to work. We got to take their phones away when they come to work. When they're working remotely, I have no idea whether or not they're working or not. When you walk into work with an organization, what is the beginning of this conversation like? Are you hearing from executives and teams about why this is important in their world?
Well, I think it's happening everywhere, right? And like, especially like the common topic of conversation I'm having with the corporate world people is this generation versus that generation, right? Like, we just unrelatable. And to that argument, I think there's pros and cons to all generations, right?
I would challenge that too, because if you were to go to an assisted living home today, you're going to see a whole bunch of 70-plus-year-old people on their phones nonstop, right? Like, it's across the board.
Crushing Facebook, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But I think, right, they potentially have an unbelievable blue collar work ethic, right? Where maybe we work smarter, not harder, right? Like it's just different across the board. And I have broken down each generation. I've done 2 talks on each generation, like from the past 5 generations, and they all have pros and cons. So like, we can point the finger all we want, but the reality of it is like, how do we use things as strengths? And I remember one time we were like, okay, if we're so involved with our phones, can we at least make make them productive on their phones? Like, can we create mental performance videos on their phone? Can we create chats that we're talking about productive stuff on their phone? You know, if we can't pull it out of their phone, how do we make it more productive? So that's one way. And then another way is just to like, if you're not getting the outcome you want, the performance that you want, then it's like starting to have conversations with the group. I'm like, okay, how do you guys think we could focus better or get better? And like, it's naturally going to come up. But the problem is like, your phone becomes part of who you are, right? So it's not just going to impact you while you're working, it's going to impact you across the board. And so it's really has to become a personal, like, I want to be better at this versus like, we just need you to be better at this at work. So I think it's a deeper issue. Like, focus and concentration cannot just be practiced in the heat of the moment. Like, it's not one of those skills where you just practice it for 2 hours while you're practicing 87 other things, right? And it's just going to work. It's got to be something that's like pretty regularly practiced throughout your day.
So there's so much to unpack there that we don't have time for all this, but I remember when I was coaching, it was probably 2012, and we were emailing our players still, right?
Yeah.
And they're late for a meeting that we had changed. And I'm like, don't you guys read their emails? And they're looking at me like, what's email? And this is like 2012 or 2013. And so we had to start texting our players we were so dumb. We started texting them to read their email instead of going where they are. And I think what you said about using their phones to get, if organizations have trouble with getting people to see what they want them to do, like with focus, whatever it is, meet your people where they are. And if people consume information, your people consume information via video, send it to them in video instead of sending it to them in an email. You're going to have so much more success as an organization if you use the medium that they're actually going to consume that on.
Yeah. Yeah. And give them a say in it, right? Like, give them a say in it. Like, hey, we want to be as productive as possible. How can we make this more productive for you guys? How can we make this more easily digestible? How can we make this more, quicker? Not that it's not important, but like, instead of all the fluff, right? Those jokes of like, this could have been in an email, right? Instead of a whole meeting, right? It's like, great. Could it have been a 1-minute video that you send out, or, whatever it is. But I think the more you get that conversation going, the more productive you can be. And then you're catering to people's needs and you're getting their opinions involved, which is kind of a win-win.
Yeah. So let's talk about the worker. So I'm a talented young person, old person, middle-aged person in an organization that I want upward mobility. I'm struggling with my focus and concentration on my job, knowing that I need that so that I can advance to the way that I want to advance or not lose my job, whatever the reasons. Is it just simply the same as with a young athlete that you approach that with someone in corporate America, that I need to improve my focus? How do you tackle that challenge inside a business setting?
Yeah, I think it still starts with, like, on a daily basis, are you giving yourselves opportunities to lock in, right? Can you do that? And then I think too, it's like, how can you know yourself to the point where you know what distracts you and you know how to refocus, right? Refocusing is a skill set too. So like, can you become aware on like, what are the things that really get me derailed, right? Is it long lectures? Is it long meetings? Is it long days, right? And is it knowing, hey, every hour and 17 minutes, I need to stand up, right? I need to drink some water. I need to, like, whatever it is, right? And the more, and I would argue the older you are, the more awareness you should have, right? Because you have more reps and you've been here longer, right? And so you should absolutely understand like what you need and when you need it. And so then you can start to build a day around how you focus best. And I was talking to a client the other day and he was saying how he saves the hardest thing he has to do for the end of the day. And then by the time the end of the day rolls around, it's like brutal. And I'm like, okay, if you know your first 2 hours of the day is when you're the most locked, that's when you have to do the hardest thing instead of, and then the rest of the day can be like a more lax focus, but you're just ripping off emails, right? Or like, oh, a phone call pops up, but it's okay. You can take it because you already did the big thing beforehand. So it's so much like genuinely understanding yourself and then creating an entire day, this is harder when you're, in middle school or high school and you like are kind of being told what to do and you can't really have that fluidity to create your own day. But like as an adult, like how are you going to focus your best? Do you need to chop your day up into 3 different pieces, into 4 different pieces, into like hour segments, like to where you can stay locked in, when where your strengths are, when you're not focused the most, and like put your like lighter tasks there, like really start to divide up and understand yourself and give yourself the chance to succeed, right? Instead of setting yourself up for a failure and every day 3 o'clock rolls around and you're like, I got the most important thing I need to do right now. And I have 0 battery left, right? Yeah. Or it's incredibly hard to focus right now. Know thyself and then create a schedule around you, I think is more, helpful for the working person than the athlete who sometimes is told what to do and when to do it all the time.
Yeah, my junior college coach used to say, "Slay the dragon before everybody else gets up." So whatever the hardest thing in your life is, do
100%.
it early, and the rest of the day is going to be easier for you.
Exactly.
Last thing on this, what are some common myths that you think should be dispelled, or the biggest myth that needs to be dispelled around focus and concentration?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think focus and concentration takes that long to be impacted. Like if you really, no pun intended, lock in, right? If you really lock in and practice this for the next 7 days, like I think you'll see an impact. I think you'll see a drastic change. Like, and it doesn't have to be, again, it's not, I want you sitting in a dark closet for 3 hours, like it does, it's like the tiny little things done consistently are what you're going to see massive impact. And again, if you are focusing outside of your performance world, whether it's a field or your desk, right? Or a presentation or a pregame speech, if you practice these other times, like before that in regular life, then when push comes to shove and stress is at an all-time high, you're going to be able to just rip it off and like focus and lock in versus only saving the time to lock in when it matters most. So don't underestimate like 7 days of trying to lock in on the little things and the impact that it can have. Because once you start to build the skill of locking in, you then become more aware when you're not locked in. And that is where the real power lies, is the quicker you can realize you're not locked in, the quicker you can get back locked in. And that's what I think separates Joe from Schmo, right? It's like you're staying locked out and you don't know how to get locked back in, but you don't even realize you're not locked in, where you get locked out, right? And then you're like, okay, wait, I'm not where I want to be. Let me focus. Here we go. Boom, bam, boom.
Such good stuff. Okay. Where can people find you? How do people follow Hannah Huesman?
Yeah. I'm everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, wherever. And I have a website that's just hannahhuesman.com. So say hi, come say hi.
Well, I'm looking forward to this journey. This is number 2 of 18 parts that you're stuck with me. So I really appreciate you doing this, and look forward to the next conversation.
Yes. Thanks for having me.